Welcome, everyone, to another episode of All Things MSP Live. Uh, Glad to see you're here. If you're here and you want to let us know that you're here, go ahead and put something in the comments. Let us know where you're here. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put a welcome in the comments, make sure they're working. Looks like Facebook and YouTube are working. Awesome. LinkedIn, of course, if you're joining us from LinkedIn, it's probably better that you switch on over to YouTube. Just the live experience is a little bit better. All right. Now, I do have a couple of things tonight just to kind of cover before we get into the meat of the topic tonight. And first of all, if this is your first time here, welcome. And if you don't know anything about All Things MSP was built to be a community where we can discuss the non-technical side of the MSP world that we live in. You can check us out on Facebook, which is our original community of almost 6,000 members, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at All Things MSP. Those are probably the two best places. However, if LinkedIn is kind of your jam, go ahead. We have a page over there. You can follow the page and get most of the information that we share, especially across the YouTube channel. The Facebook group allows itself, because it is a private group, and we only allow people who are associated with the MSP industry in. It gives us the opportunity to have conversations in that group, and just want to make sure that you guys check that out as well. And one thing, I gave this in the tip that I sent out this morning. I typically do a weekly update every week. And what I did was I let everybody know that I do have anonymous posting turned on in the Facebook group. First of all, because it's a private group, so only people that we allow in are in there. And I really wanted it to be a safe place for people to ask questions. And so therefore, I wanted to make sure that you could still use the anonymous feature to ask those questions that you may not be comfortable asking with your name attached. So, make sure you're asking the questions that are relevant to your business. There are so many MSPs in that Facebook group that are there and ready to help that, it's really a resource you should be taking advantage of. Now, in regards to tonight's episode, it's the second in a series on building personal accountability in your business. I talked about, I think this was, several episodes ago, we talked about the 3 pillars of accountability. And we did a workshop on one of them. And now we're doing the one on the processes and tools that you can use to keep yourself accountable and more productive. And one of the things I want you to get out of these is that, yes, there's a way that I have figured out that works for me, but the most important thing is that you figure out the right combination that works with your brain, your habits, your processes, so that it works best for you. Because I truly believe that personal productivity is absolutely personal, and you have to make your system meet your unique idiosyncrasies to make sure that it is working as best as it can specifically for you. But first, tonight we need to thank our sponsors. Our first sponsor is CoreView. Are you struggling with standardizing Microsoft 365 tenant configurations and keeping them the way you configured them? With Simian Cloud, you can template your ideal tenant configurations and deploy them with just a click. Auto-deploy configurations for new clients, receive alerts on tenant drifts. That's when the configurations start to change. You can bring them back into compliance, and save your team endless hours of manual configurations. So why work for your tenant when it can work for you? Find out more at atmsp.link/CoreView. And then our second sponsor for tonight goes into Eureka. Picture this: your MSP is thriving, hiring the right people, delivering top-notch service, growing faster than ever, and you're on vacation. That's the future with the growth program by Goes Into Eureka. Whether you're just starting out or planning your perfect exit, this program is designed to guide you through every challenge. Imagine having a team of experts by your side, helping you navigate mergers, fine-tune operations, and build a business that stands the test of time. Are you ready to make this your reality? Shoot an email to support@goesinto.com or go to ATMSP bit.ly/Eureka, and let's grow your success story together. All right. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and let's talk about tonight's topic. Now, tonight's topic is about uh, some personal accountability and how you can put processes and tools in place that help you become personally accountable to you. Because at the end of the day, yes, we can employ other people. And that's the third pillar, right? Is employing other people to help us stay accountable. But at the end of the day, it's really up to us. So, what are some of the things that we can do to make sure we're not letting things slip through the cracks? Okay, so I don't really have slides tonight because I did the whole Miro board thing again, because I really think that that's the best way to do some of these, because then I can do some ad hoc things as we're going along. So the first one, and let me just get into presentation mode. There we go. Is there are 3 basic steps to this, right? To keeping yourself accountable. Keeping yourself accountable to time. So that's time management. Keeping yourself accountable to tasks, the things that you need to do. And then also, I threw in project management here because there are a lot of project management tools. And sometimes a to-do list just doesn't do it, right? So these 3 things put together and using the right tools, I believe, can help you keep yourself on track, keep yourself focused, and keep yourself accountable. Now, this is going to be different for everybody, because people who have ADHD, which I highly suspect that I do, are going to use different tools in different ways than somebody who is just naturally on time and focused and all of those different things. So you may need different degrees of these. Hopefully, I'm going to give you some ideas tonight of some of the things that you can do. And yeah, so let's get more into it. Oh, and the kind of the fourth part of this is progress management, making sure that you are keeping track of your progress according to these things so that you can make sure that you're getting through. Now, if you have any questions as we're going through this tonight, please make use of the chat feature. Now, if you're on LinkedIn, sometimes those come through, sometimes they don't. Better off on Facebook or on YouTube, usually on YouTube. YouTube seems to be the most stable when it comes to live streaming. So that would be my recommendation. But going forward with this, especially if you have questions, please make sure you put them in the chat, because I'm doing this for everybody else's benefit. I've spent a long time figuring out systems that work for me. And by the way, I'm learning every day. Sometimes I'm picking things up that help me with my personal productivity. So make sure that you're taking just as much information as you can from anywhere. Hopefully, this will give you a jump start. Okay, so the first part of this really has to do with your to-do list, your task management. And I'm starting here because there's a very important piece to task management that is important, in my opinion, especially with the challenges that I seem to have. And that is capturing information. It's capturing the things that I need to think about and remember so that I am making sure that I come back around to them, that I'm completing them, whatever it is. And so capturing, to me, is extremely important. And my requirements for something that is good at capturing is it has to be handy. It has to be right where I am at all times. And you can see them down there in my stack. I have put my stack down there in terms of what I use for this. And it's a combination of my bullet journal, which I do have over here, if you guys can see that. It's just a book. It has dotted pages. If you're into this kind of stuff, you know that dotted pages have kind of taken over from graph paper. If you're into regular journaling, maybe you still use lines, but it's okay. You're welcome here. It just gives you it's easier for me to draw in, to write in. And that is my primary capture, especially when I am, let's call it, doing structured work. When I'm sitting at my desk, this is no more than an arm's length away from me. And it is where I keep my notes throughout the day, and is where I record those tasks. And I use something called the bullet journaling method. I'm not going to go into it. And I tell you, refrain from Googling it right now, because you will go down a rabbit trail. And there's all these beautiful artistic bullet journals out there. That's not what I do. Mine is very simple. It's very minimalistic. Um, Basically, the system that Carol Ryder, who is the inventor of the bullet journaling system, uh, I use it basically the same way he does, with some adjustments for my personal style. Um, Field notes. A lot of times, if I'm away from my desk, I don't have my bullet journal with me. So I do have a small field notes notebook that fits inside of my wallet. And I have a pen that's always in my wallet, so that if I need to capture something while I'm out, I can do it in my field notes. Now, there's one more capture device, physical capture device, that I use, and that is what I call a weekend card. And it's basically 1/4 of a page, of a 8.5 by 11 letter size page. And on one side, it has place for the date. It has dotted lines over here for writing, making a to-do list. And then it has a full days, time from 1 a.m. to midnight down this side, sectioned off into 15-minute increments. And so what I basically use this for is, if I'm going to be out somewhere and I need to, at a glance, have my day and my to-dos with me, but I can't carry this, I can't carry my bullet journal, then this is the tool that I use. And by the way, the backside is also dotted line or dotted paper, so that I can take notes, I can expand on my to-do list, whatever it is. This card is what I use on the weekend. That's why I call it a weekend card. I use it on the weekends when I'm not necessarily carrying my wallet everywhere, and I definitely don't have my bullet journal somewhere nearby. So by the way, if you want the template for this, I have a PDF of this. Just find me on LinkedIn, ping me anywhere that you can find me, and I will send that out to you for free. It's just a handy little thing for me. Really does help with the weekends, by the way. And that's where I use it the most. So handy, reliable, and findable are the important parts of your capture devices. Okay. Now there's one more thing that I use, because there is a time when I do not have my bullet journal, I do not have my field notes, I do not have my weekend cards with me. And that is one of the times when I'm actually doing a lot of thinking. And that is on my morning walk / run, depending on how I'm feeling that morning. And, because that's 30, 45 minutes, depending on the route. And I think of a lot of stuff during that time. And so Apple reminders are the last capture device that I'll mention here that I use in my stack. You can use lots of different things, but that's the one that I use when I don't have any of those other things. And by the way, once a day, I go through those reminders so that anything that I've captured in Apple reminders, I can go ahead and move to my bullet journal. Okay, so capturing, very important. But once you capture it, what do you do with it? So what I do is I either log it as a task, and this could go into a much longer conversation that I don't think anybody wants to have right here. If anybody's interested in exactly how my system works, more than happy to share one-on-one, and maybe I'll do a video about it someday. But how I set up my bullet journal. But suffice it to say, I have a list of tasks and I log them there, and that makes sure that I see those again, because I go through that every single day. If it's something that I know is going to happen on a specific date at a specific time, I go ahead and schedule it. No sense in waiting around. Just put it on the calendar so that you're doing it at the appropriate time. Delegate. Okay. Give it away. Give it to somebody else. Now, the only key there, and that's why I have an asterisk there, is that you do have to schedule or log a follow-up tasks, because again, we don't want anything to get lost. That's the purpose of capturing it and then processing it, is you make sure that nothing gets lost. So if you delegate it to somebody else, make sure that you are scheduling or logging some type of task so that you will come back to that at a later date. And then file. This one also has an asterisk, and it points back to my stack, and that I use the Getting Things Done by David Allen filing system, or sometimes it's called 43 folders. I'm not sure if he invented it. He does talk about it in Getting Things Done. And basically, you have a folder for every month of the year, and then you have 31 folders, so 31, 12, 43, so that you can physically, and this is great if you have like physical tickets to something, right? Which doesn't happen as much anymore, but it does happen. Or you have some other type of physical piece of paper or small object that you want to make sure bubbles back up on the day that you need it to bubble back up, and you don't have to remember where it is or even think about it. Okay. So that's the Getting Things Done filing system. Again, you can look it up. 43 folders is another way to look it up. It's a perpetual system, so it just keeps rotating through, and it works really, really well if you still have those physical items that you need to make sure show up at the right time. And then if I'm going to talk about, my entire stack here, I do have to talk about my calendar system. My calendar system, I use Google Calendar. I actually have 3 of them, because I have my work calendar for Ignite, I have my personal calendar, and that I share with family, and then I have my All Things MSP calendar. So I have those 3 calendars. Well, on a mobile device, it's fine, because all 3 of those calendars, you can show them all on one screen. You can't do that on the website. You have to have separate tabs open for each one. So I actually purchased an app called Fantastical, and that works great on my MacBook. So, and it works on the mobile devices too, but I don't know. I just tend to use the native Google Calendar app on my iOS devices. But on my MacBook, it is the best tool for me to be able to bring all 3 of those calendars in to one interface so that I can see them all at one time. And then I guess I should maybe mention here that I do use Calendly as well, to kind of make sure I'm scheduling things properly across all 3 of those calendars, because that's one of the things that Calendly does great. I think it's only with a paid subscription, though. It will check more than one calendar for conflicts, so that it won't let anybody schedule anything when you have something maybe on one of your other calendars. Okay. And then, of course, do. Capture, process, do. It's very simple. You want to make sure you capture it and you don't lose it. You make sure you process it so it gets in the right place, and that it's going to pop up when you need it to pop up, and you don't have to go looking for it. Okay? So those are the key points there. Now, projects. Let's talk about projects. Projects, to me, are just complex to-do lists. Okay, that's really all they are. We can make them complex. We can use very complex tools. And sometimes that complexity means we have to use an extra tool, which is why we talk about it separately. Okay, now this is the coder version. Project tasks are just nested subtasks. Again, changed my mind. But on a little more serious note, some of the tools that I would use to manage projects, I don't typically have a lot of large, complex projects. I do have projects. Typically, I have a way of tracking them in my bullet journal. I have a dedicated page for each project. And it's very similar to the paper-based system that you see on the slide, or the anti-slide, because it's not really a slide. And I do have that template, by the way. I made that template when I was using GoodNotes to kind of do bullet journaling digitally. I just like paper. I like a paper and a real pen. I don't know what to tell you. But I have actually all of those forms available as a PDF if you're interested in that as well. You can see all the different forms that I created for GoodNotes, and they're just a PDF, so you could just print them if you wanted to. Obviously, you have project management software. You have things like Microsoft Project. Is that still a thing? You have Monday.com. You have more industry-specific things like Asana, stuff like that. So different tools that you can use to manage projects. Now, one of my favorites, however, because I like simple, right? I'm kind of simple. I guess that's why I like the pen and paper a little bit more. Are called Kanban boards. And you can do this physically. A lot of places you can do this by just putting it, on a whiteboard with columns and sticky notes, kind of like you see in the icon there. And there is several tools, digital tools that you can use out there as well. The one that I've used in the past and the one that I pick up from time to time, because they have a great free version, is called Trello. And you can create Kanban boards in there. You can create multiples, keep them all in one place. You can share them with a team. You can store information in them. To me, Kanban boards are great because they're simple and they're kind of flexible. And I kind of like the combination of the simplicity and the flexibility. But again, they're just complex to-do lists or tasks with nested subtasks. Okay, a little bit of a break here. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and put them into the chat. Do appreciate everybody being here tonight. I wanted to also ask the question, if anybody was on last week's live stream with Tim Coach, would love to hear your comments on that. Tim and I will be recording the other 4 sessions, the 2 for MSPs and the 2 for vendors that we talked about in that kind of kickoff show. And those are going to be available as soon as we can get them recorded and edited. We have gotten a lot of great feedback from the show, which we really do appreciate. And like I said, if you guys have any questions about that or the topics that we're covering tonight, please feel free to ask them. Or you can always join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/all things MSP. It is a private group, so you will have to ask to join. We do a little bit of vetting, just make sure that, it does look like you're an MSP. And if your social media doesn't look like you're an MSP, tell us why you want to join. And, if you qualify, we'll let you in. And that's kind of how we keep it, so that the right people are in the group, hopefully. So, and it's a great place to ask questions. And by the way, at the top of the hour, when I started the show, I did mention, if you feel like you need to ask a question anonymously, I have left anonymous posting turned on in the Facebook group, specifically because it's private and we're pretty sure that everybody in there is safe. Nothing's 100%, but, we do try. But that being the case, you can post things anonymously and ask questions anonymously so that you get the benefit of the 6,000 members in that group. We have both MSPs and vendors who are there ready to help, to give you an answer. It's not just me. Trust me, there are all kinds of MSPs in all different stages of their journey who are willing to help. Okay, let's move on to... Okay, this is probably my favorite piece of accountability. And this is calendar blocking. I mentioned it in an episode of MSP Business School, I think it was, with Brian Doyle. And we talked about calendar blocking. I also mentioned it a couple of times in some of the things where I was talking about the 12 weeks book, the 12-week year. That's what it's called. And great book, by the way, very good in terms of productivity. And basically what they talk about is, and the whole idea behind calendar blocking is making sure that not only that you're filling up your day, because that's not the point. It's not the whole point anyway. The point is to make sure you have the right amount of time for the right things. Okay. So what I did here is I kind of color coded this, right? I have strategic. Strategic stands for time that you're setting aside to work on things that are going to matter kind of in the future. Those are the things that you need to do in order to stay aligned with your overall why, what you're trying to do with your life, your business, whatever it is. Now, what they recommend is that you probably spend 2 to 3 hours of strategic time. Okay. And then, oh, Miro did not like me moving my cursor. Um, Actually, let me change that to that. And I think that'll keep that from happening. Um, if you, oh, but I can't move. I have to keep it on select. The other type is scheduled tasks. Okay. So scheduled tasks are things that you have to fit into your day. So let me grab a blue one here. And maybe, this is just an hour-long meeting. So I'll make it smaller and I'll just put it in here at the 9 o'clock hour. It could be a half an hour long, whatever it is. These are the things that you schedule. And these could literally be meetings. They could be time that you set aside to do a certain amount of work. So say you want to work for 2 hours on a project. Okay. So you block out 2 hours of time to work on that project. Okay. Now, of course, I'm doing this with sticky notes. You would do it in your calendar app or on a physical calendar. Hopefully you're using a calendar app because so much better, right? Let me just make that one a little more apparent. And then obviously, you're going to have things that come up during the day that you have to take care of. So they recommend taking and creating a couple of blocks of time a day, at least one, maybe two, of buffer time. And that's the green ones. And what buffer time is, it's time set aside every day specifically to handle the little tasks that come up that day. Things like checking email, checking social media, the little things, unless your whole job is social media, right? But it's to capture those things and get them done right kind of when they happen so that you can get them done, taken care of, and out of the way. And making sure that you schedule time to do that, again, holds yourself accountable to make sure that you're doing it. And especially for somebody like me, I put my email off until that time. I don't let email and texts and things like that distract me unless obviously they're urgent. Again, kind of the same thing with Slack messages. You can see them, acknowledge the notification, but if it's something that you can put off until your buffer time, go ahead and put it off until your buffer time. And then, you may have a couple of more things to do that day. I'm just going to kind of fill up the calendar a little bit. Maybe put in a little more buffer time here. And maybe that gets me up to 5 o'clock, right? Actually, this would get me up to 6. We don't want to work past 6. So there we go. Fixed. Now, the other important thing is breakout time. And breakout time is when you get away from the work stuff, right? And in this way, I am intentionally setting up my day so that I am working on the important stuff that's going to drive my business forward or drive my personal goals forward, right? With strategy. I'm having the meetings that I need. I'm working on the projects that I need to work on. I'm setting aside time to do the things that pop up during the day or that I need to batch, like emails, for example. And then I'm making sure that I'm preserving time for those personal things, for getting away from work, doing things with the family, going on walks, doing whatever. And, that's just a good way to visually map out your day. And what this does to me specifically, because one of the things I tend to overcommit. Okay. I'll raise my hand. Yeah, it's me. I do it. Calendar blocking helps me to not only better plan out my day to meet my goals, but it also makes sure that I don't overcommit myself for a day. Because one of the things that I do is I look at my to-do list every day. And there are some things that I can fit into buffer time. There are some things that I need to schedule 15 minutes, a half hour, an hour, maybe even more to work on to get done. And that way I can look at my calendar and go, I'm going to have to work on this on Wednesday because I don't have time Monday and Tuesday. Okay. It helps my brain to think about it that way and be able to kind of fill in the puzzle to make sure that I don't have too many pieces and I'm not overcommitting myself. All right. Any questions about calendar blocking? To me, this was a life changer, by the way, because especially because of the overcommitting thing and being very ADHD. So if I limit the interruption processing to my buffer time, I find my day is much more productive because I'm actually getting the things done that I need to get done in that day. Okay. Next. Okay, this is where we're going to kind of bring it all together and we're going to talk about goals. Now, we talked about goal setting, okay, last time. And this is not that because goal setting is kind of prepping you, right? This is more about measuring it, okay? Making sure that you can see the results. I don't know why that I know it's just it's going to bother me if I don't do it. It was hiding behind the picture. This is an actual index card that I have on my desk. It's right here, as a matter of fact, that I reference from time to time. And when you're measuring goals and accomplishment towards those goals, you typically will have an outcome. And in this case, I'm using sales or revenue as the eventual outcome that I want. But I can't actually do revenue. I can't take action that immediately translates into revenue, right? So I have to back that up. I have to start with that because that's what I want, right? And we should have a very good vision of what we want there, right? We want X amount of revenue at Y amount of profit. That's very specific. Okay. But in order to get there, we actually have to work ourselves backward. And Ali Abdal, who's a YouTuber that I definitely recommend if you're into personal productivity, take a look at especially some of his older videos. They're great. He also wrote a book, which is awesome. Feel Good Productivity is the name of the book. And he actually showed me this. And it's important to understand that as you move from input to outcome goals, there's a difference in the level of control that you have over these things. You don't have direct control over how much revenue you bring in. Okay. But you back that up to your output goals, which are just the results of your input goals, right? Input goals are the things that you actually do. That's the thing you really can control. Okay. It's emails sent, it's phone calls made, it's LinkedIn messages sent, it's the quantity of work that you input into the process to get output, which are your results. Okay. So your output from the input, if I'm using email sent as my input, email opens would be the output, right? I don't have as much control, but I still have a little bit of control over that. Okay. And same thing for meetings scheduled. And the reason why I put it like this, by the way, is that you're going to have one kind of input. Okay. Now, I understand in your whole sales process, you may have emails, phone calls, LinkedIn messages, physical visits, whatever it is, right? But they're going to have a different process that you're going to go through. Emails sent, go to emails opened, which hopefully create meetings scheduled. Okay. So you're going to have one input, but you could have multiple outputs. So you could have input to an email open, which now that email open is the input to a meeting scheduled. The meeting scheduled is, the input to a proposal, and then the proposal is the output that hopefully is going to generate revenue. So hopefully that makes sense. Does that make, hopefully that makes sense. But basically activity drives results, drives outcomes. Outcomes are what we want, but we have to work backwards to get our results and our activity. And our activity and our results are what we want to measure, because once we can create a correlation, a factor between activity and results, now we can start really predicting how much revenue, how much outcome we can create if we can predict the conversion rate from activity to results to outcomes. And this works for pretty much anything, right? And once you get good at this, once you've done it a lot, you know exactly how many emails you need to send to get a certain amount of meetings, to send a certain amount of proposals, to generate a certain amount of revenue. Okay. And I don't know an MSP who doesn't want more revenue. All right. That is pretty much all I had tonight. Obviously each one of those, you're going to want to track very specific numbers. By the way, I did forget. I did want to mention that, input is a number of emails sent in this example. Your output is the number of times it's opened, the number of meetings scheduled, the number of proposals sent. Okay. Those are numbers that you can actually measure. And then of course, revenue and profit on the outcome is another number you can measure. And once you've done it a couple of times, you can start putting together forecasting. And forecasting is so important as your business matures, because it says, if I spend X amount of dollars to do this number of emails or this number of phone calls or whatever, this amount of work, I'm going to get these results, and these results are going to convert into this amount of outcome. All right. Well, any last questions before we wrap it up for tonight? I do appreciate everybody being here, by the way. I know that you are taking time out from your evening, except if you're over on that West Coast thing over there. And no shame on my West Coast friends. I know I have a lot of West Coast people who tune into the show, so I do appreciate you. I know you talk about us East Coasters too, so it's just fair. Anyway, yeah, I think that's it. I do know that Marvin B has a show tonight. It's on onboarding, which should be important for all of us. If you did not catch the live stream that I did with Jonathan Schofield from Channel Falcon this week, go ahead and check that out. It was a lot of fun. I talked about something that I probably need to create some deeper videos on here on this channel, because I've put together this framework for measuring not only the customer experience across the entire customer journey, but also your experience, your employees' experience, and your vendors' experience, because they're a stakeholder too. And using that framework to find out which part of your business you need to work on first, and how to measure success or failure in each, not just category or stage, but also what success and failure looks like for each of the stakeholders at that stage, because it's important to know how your client feels, how your employees feel, how your vendors feel, and it's extremely important that you know how you feel about how the business is doing at those different stages. So maybe we'll talk about that one night. Let me know if that's of interest to you guys, and we'll check it out, and we'll do maybe a workshop style thing for that one as well. But with that, I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight, and we will catch you in the next one. Have a great evening.